I don't think this is as emotional as we're making it out to be. You know, take away the hysteria for a moment. First off, Trump doesn't need
Who's
AP
being
to
hysterical?
Both of you. Trump doesn't need, first of all, AP
You
to
obviously
take
don't know what a
photographs.
hysterical and a Navarro is
I
like.
just believe it comes down to compliance.
Welcome to Political Crossfire. CNN turned into a political pressure cooker when Anna Navarro, Scott Jennings, Emily Austin, and Abby Phillip collided over Donald Trump, free speech, and the fight over calling the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. And somehow, a debate about geography turned into a much bigger argument about presidential power. Emily Austin tells Navarro to drop the hysteria. Navarro immediately fires back. Abby Phillip accuses Scott Jennings of arguing in bad faith. And then the panel runs straight into an uncomfortable question for Republicans. How does limited government square with Washington pressuring private media companies? And here's the fun part: would conservatives defend that same power if a Democratic president used it against Fox News? Stick around, because this one gets loud, personal, and surprisingly revealing. Before we begin, subscribe to Political Crossfire and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our latest political debates and analysis. Let's get into it.
For an administration that claims to champion free speech, it is certainly not a fan. It is certainly a fan of silencing people. For the second straight day, the Associated Press is the largest news organization in the world, and it now has been banned from the White House and from the Oval Office over the AP's refusal to adopt Trump's preferred name for the Gulf of Mexico.
I was very upfront in my briefing on day one that if we feel that there are lies being pushed by outlets in this room, we are going to hold those lies accountable. And it is a fact that the body of water off the coast of Louisiana is called the Gulf of America. And I'm not sure why news outlets don't want to call it that, but that is what it is.
Says the person who talked about $50 billion worth of condoms in Gaza, but that is neither here nor there. Brian Stelter is with us, also with us, Emily Austin. Look, this is putting aside her points about lies being told in the briefing room.
Right.
There's some really interesting questions happening here about whether the White House can compel news organizations to talk about things in a particular way.
This is a power play, plain and simple. The president wants people to obey. He wants people to use the words he chooses. He wants people to fall in line. And if they don't, they lose their access. They're not allowed to be in the company of the president. Notably, in the last 2 days, when the AP reporters have been blocked, in one case, I'm told physically blocked from entering the Oval Office, the photographer was still allowed in, the AP photographer, right? Because the president still wants his photo taken.
Pictures, just
he wants the pictures,
words.
but not the words. This is a First Amendment violation, and I expect in the next few days, the AP will file suit. And they have a very strong case in court. This is yet another example where the courts will be the recourse for presidential action.
Brian, what are the other media outlets doing?
Right now,
Yeah.
they're still showing up, they're still asking questions, but that's right. The Correspondents Association has condemned this and called it unacceptable. I think you're suggesting maybe reporters should, what, skip the briefing?
Should band together, because, I
Skip
mean,
the,
listen,
Q&As?
if the bully manages to bully one, he's not going to stop at one.
I don't think this is as emotional as we're making it out to be. You know, take away the hysteria for a moment. First off, Trump doesn't need
Who's
AP
being
to
hysterical?
Both of you. Trump doesn't need, first of all, AP
You
to
obviously
take
don't
his
know what a
photographs.
hysterical and a Navarro is
I
like.
just believe it comes down to compliance.
That's true,
Trump put out an executive order. There was an executive order. He changed the name legally to Gulf of America. They're United States based. I know they're international as well, but right now they're covering U.S. politics. So if he makes an executive order, they should respect that. And if they don't, being there is not a right, it's a privilege.
So I'm going to add in here, though, that this has been called the Gulf of Mexico for 400 years.
Right.
So just because Trump claims that we need to...
States.
Okay, but doesn't this feel like a really weird, like, wokeism thing on the right? Like, it feels like the right's version of, like, Latinx or, like, birthing person. It just feels like a really weird hill to die on.
Nobody, by the way, just to be clear, nobody had to
cover it.
comply with any of that.
Yeah, if the
I don't think I've
Biden,
ever
if
said
the
the words
Biden
birthing
administration did that,
And if they did,
people
I
would be
think
up in arms.
your heads would be exploding at this table.
Maybe
If someone said to you, you've got to refer to people as
they should
birthing
adopt
people.
the Prince method. Just have a little symbol called the Gulf, formerly known as the Gulf of Mexico, which should now be called whatever the hell.
They should say
there's a much
formerly
broader-
Gulf of
The Gulf of whatever the hell he wants.
There's a much broader Mexico or the Gulf of America. Tomorrow, what is it? The president says there's only 2 genders in this world. We all know transgender people. What happens when the AP reports on transgender Americans? What happens when CNN or ABC or the New York Times?
Okay,
Are those the next
what
outlets
if
to
I
be
believe
punished?
that there's 2 genders and then Biden tells me that there's 73? What, I don't comply with that.
Yeah, but
the Biden
Biden
administration
is
isn't barring
banning-
Fox News from covering press conferences.
Right, he's not going to ban you from
And Trump
coming to
hasn't
the
done
White
that
House
yet.
because
This
you
is
have a
what I
different
mean about
belief.
the
Well, for the last 2 days, though, the AP has been blocked from attending events that
They
it's
will not
attended for
comply with the
decades.
executive
No,
order.
I really would,
you
would
want the
rather you
president to do that?
not refer to me
ban AP?
as hysterical for expressing an opinion. I think that's incredibly disrespectful. I don't do it to you.
Why do you think the AP won't just call it the Gulf of America?
Essentially, they are saying that the Trump's order only carries authority within the United States. Mexico, as well as other countries and international bodies, do not have to recognize that name change. The Gulf of Mexico has carried that name for 400 years, as was said at the table, and the Associated Press is going to refer to it by its original name while acknowledging that Trump has a new name that he would like to call it. They are an international organization. No one except Trump with a pen has said that it's the Gulf of America. It's a body of water that also has borders with another country. And it's been named that for 400 years.
I know, but we have a lawful process in this country for changing the name of it. The president went through it with the Secretary of the Interior, by the way. I mean, it
And
feels
it's
a
also
little
different.
it
Can I
feels
just answer your Denali question? The Denali thing is actually different because that's a place that's in the United States proper. It exists in
But we changed the name of it. The point is we changed the name
we
of it.
have the ability
It
to
does
change
happen.
the name. It's
And
Mount McKinley. It's Mount McKinley.
But we also have the ability to change this body of water. I think, look, this smacks to me of a news organization looking for a way to pick a fight with Donald Trump over something that they don't need to pick a fight over.
Exactly.
A. B.
It's petty.
B. He is the president, and there is a lawful process that he did follow to do it.
The news
and so
organization
why
did
won't they
not
just
pick a fight
respect
with Donald
that?
Trump over this. Donald Trump picked a fight with the news organization.
No, they're not calling
over
it by the name.
No,
That's the
the
fight.
news organization can do whatever they want. If they want to call it the Gulf of South America, they can call it
But
that.
why would I
Donald
respect a
Trump
news
doesn't-
organization that doesn't deal in reality?
But
You don't have
false
to.
information. If to not
Scott,
call it what
they
it
can
is.
call it whatever they want because there's free speech in this country. Wouldn't
Sure.
you agree?
Yes, but that, in my opinion, if you're not willing to call something by the proper name based on the laws of the United States, that calls into question your judgment. And are you a
There
news
are no-
organization
by the way,
or are
there
you?
are in play here. It's an executive order,
but-
and the body of water is not
Okay.
named by the United States. It's named
Sure
by
it is.
global organizations that name global landmarks.
Would it
That's
be-
not.
I mean,
It's not. There's a
So
law.
you don't respect Donald Trump's executive order or the Secretary of the Interior's process on this either. then?
Donald Trump had an executive order, but the Associated Press is not bound by it.
Scott,
That's
what
the
if
bottom line.
the
Well,
Biden
that's their
administration
choice.
did
I like
this,
the-
though, similarly? What if the Biden administration was barring, say, a Fox News because they weren't going along with an executive order where Biden said you must refer to every single transgender person as they,
Listen,
them, or whatever
I
it
think
was?
I think if you
would
want to engage in a-
would you be supportive of that then?
Yeah,
I think
no,
that
no.
it gets really dangerous when we start forcing terminology on people. I didn't like it when the left did it with things like Latinx, birthing person,
Okay,
you
these
name
things
it.
are not in any way, shape, or form
no,
related.
they're
B,
remotely
the Biden
similar.
administration treated the press as poorly as any president has ever treated them, gave them less access, answered no questions, no transparency at any given time. Donald Trump's answered more questions in 3 weeks than Joe Biden answered in 4 years. Elon Musk answered
That's not
more
true,
than
and also a lot of the answers
Come
are
on, Brian.
It's also-
This
it's also-
administration
hang on,
is
hang
giving
on.
the most
It is
access to the press
also-
they could possibly
just
want.
to be clear, it's also changing the subject, and we're not changing the
But
subject.
you're asking about transparency.
No,
Can the news be covered?
Actually,
And
we're
yes,
talking
it's being
about
covered.
the First Amendment, freedom of speech.
Is he being
The
covered?
AP will win in
That's what we're
court.
talking
Look, the
about.
AP is going to win in
okay.
court. If they go to court, the AP will win, just as CNN won in 2018 when a press credential was revoked. We're going to see the courts speak out on behalf of the First Amendment here.
I'm with Scott here that if he changes the name to the Gulf of America, whether they like it or not, them not calling it that, they are based out of the U.S. I get that they're an international organization. It's simply they're not reporting on the truth. So now if you're the president, you can
The truth-
argue they're not
But
reporting
Emily,
the truth.
wouldn't
so why
you
are they
agree that
qualified
the
to be
truth
here?
is also that the rest of the world calls it the Gulf
So
of Mexico?
technically, every other country could change the name of
wouldn't
it
you
too in their own country. Then the journalists should comply with whatever their
Okay,
country
but
wants
Emily,
to call
wouldn't
it.
you agree that the truth is also that every other country in the world calls it the Gulf of Mexico?
That's fine, but Donald Trump put an
So,
executive order to
which
change
truth
it.
do you care about?
I care about the American truth.
Okay,
So
okay.
the
So, let's
American
just be
truth
clear
is that
about
Trump
it.
changed
You only
the name.
care about
So
the
US
version of
journalists
truth that Donald Trump
I believe
says
it's
is
This feels like a really
US
weird hill to die
journalists-
on and something to get quite hysterical
It's-
over.
They're going after NPR and PBS. They're going after NBC, Universal, and Comcast over their corporate practices around DEI. What authority do they have to
The
do
FCC has never done this under Republicans or Democrats before. The current FCC chair appointed by Trump wants to be different, wants to do things differently. That's what he's doing. But this all smacks of an attempt to pressure every major media company in the U.S. except for Fox News. In terms of
Which,
license
by the way,
holders,
until
all the others are under pressure
maybe
right now.
two or 3 weeks ago, also had DEI practices as part of their
Yes, it did.
corporate governance.
Yes, it did. We
Because
talked
they're
about-
a private corporation.
And it can do what it wants.
And it can do what it wants, except maybe not. I mean, are we okay with the government telling corporations how they can govern themselves?
There's nothing less conservative than that, and less of a Republican value than that. I mean, Republicans used to be for small government and for the private sector governing themselves, and we are for less regulation, supposedly. And so I see it so opposed to all of the things that we grew up believing.
So you're saying we should do away with the FCC?
No, I'm not saying we should do away with the FCC.
Is that the conservative view?
I'm saying that no government agency
Anna, I'm
should
going to
be
stop this conversation
telling.
right there because I think it's so.
I mean, we're in
it
the
is
mood right now. I'm just
Scott,
telling
it's
you.
in such bad faith for you to take what she just said
Well, I'm
and
asking.
then say you want to get rid of the FCC.
No, she said we
That's
should
not-
have less regulations.
That's
This
not
is a
at all-
regulatory
but that's
agency. What
not-
are they supposed to do?
That's not at all what she said.
She said they shouldn't be so active.
What's your answer to her question about whether the FCC should
don't know.
be
I truthfully
dabbling in
don't know.
Comcast and NBC Universal and saying, this is how you need to run your corporation?
Well, I mean, I think these public broadcasters, I mean, they do have these licenses because it's the public airwaves, and that's the reason the regulatory agency exists. So, you know, that's the way it's always worked. I truthfully don't know what the right answer here is. This is a more muscular look at these. Trump obviously and his people feel that some of these people have run amok with their with the privilege of having these licenses. So I don't know what the answer is.
Wow, that panel went from a fight over the Gulf of America to a full-blown argument about government power. Once you get past all the interruptions, Ana Navarro was really asking a much bigger question than what we should call a body of water. This is about whether a president should be able to punish a news organization because it refuses to use the language the White House prefers. Emily Austin's argument was simple. Trump changed the name for federal purposes, so in her view, the Associated Press should respect that decision. But the AP is not part of the Trump administration. An executive order can direct the federal government, but that does not automatically mean an independent news organization has to use the same terminology. If a Democratic White House told Fox News, use our preferred language or lose access, would conservatives defending this move today still support it? That is the consistency test. Ana Navarro also raised a serious point about traditional conservative principles. Republicans have spent decades talking about smaller government, fewer regulations, private sector independence, and less interference from Washington. So those principles should still apply when the company involved is a media outlet conservatives dislike. You cannot celebrate limited government when it protects businesses you agree with, then cheer government pressure when the target is a news organization you do not like. Abby Phillip also caught an important moment when Scott Jennings stretched Navarro's argument into something she was not saying. Navarro questioned government involvement in private media companies. Jennings responded as if she wanted the FCC gone. Jennings did have one fair point. Presidents have authority to make changes inside the federal government. The real question is where that authority ends. Trump can tell his administration to use Gulf of America, but should that give the White House power to pressure independent journalists into using the same words? Then things got personal when Emily Austin called Navarro hysterical. That did nothing to strengthen Austin's case. Challenge Navarro's argument, explain why she's wrong. But dismissing somebody as hysterical almost guarantees the temperature at the table is going to explode. Americans are worried about groceries, housing, healthcare, immigration, taxes, jobs, and the economy, yet cable news is having a huge battle over whether reporters say Gulf of Mexico or Gulf of America. The name may sound trivial. The principle underneath it is not. How much control should any president have over the press? And would you still support that power if the other party controlled the White House? Was Ana Navarro right to call out what she saw as a contradiction in conservative principles, or did Scott Jennings and Emily Austin make the stronger case? Share your opinion below and subscribe to Political Crossfire for more political debates and analysis.